Hi, everybody. Tonight I'd like to talk about how to create geo-object types and hierarchies in a GeoPrism registry. Geo-object types and hierarchies are the formal structures used to define how data should look in a GeoPrism registry. But before I get too far, I'd like to go through some of the resources we're going to use tonight. I'm going to link everything in the description of the video, so you don't need to mark them down now, but you'll be able to access all these resources in the future. To start off with, if you don't know what a GeoPrism registry is, I'd encourage you to go to geoprismregistry.com, where you'll find some overview information, including features and a roadmap. If you'd like to follow along with the code base or the tickets used in this to manage this project, you can find this project as geoprism-registry on GitHub. And all the information we're going to talk about tonight is documented in the official documentation, which is docs.geoprismregistry.com. And finally, all the data we're going to use tonight and more is available in the GeoPrism Registry example data repository. So let's jump right in. Here we are on the home page of the demo GeoPrism Registry instance. See here, this is publicly available to you. And here in the official documentation, under section 6.1.4, you can see the public credentials to log in and test out GeoPrism Registry. So again, you can follow along with what I'm doing on this instance publicly. So here from the homepage, I'm going to click on Geo-Objects and Hierarchies, but all these modules are available through the hamburger menu and in the header as well. On the left, you can see all the geo-object types and hierarchies that are in the system currently. Geo-object types are the formal structure of a collection of data. So this is a bit like a data schema. It defines how data should look for a collection of geo-objects. Geo-objects are the term to describe instance data or a data record. Here you can see there's geo-object types that define colleges, primary schools, community health workers, health facilities, and so on. Hierarchies, on the other hand, are the structure that defines how these geo-object types fit together. Here we're looking at a basic administrative hierarchy, which we're going to use later on in this demonstration. But you can see that there's a linear structure where region is above province, is above county, is above shire, etc. There's a variety of hierarchies in the demo system now, including more complex hierarchies. Tonight, I'd like to actually create our own geo-object type and hierarchy that inherits a hierarchy from another organization. So before we get too far into that, I'd like to look at the actual data that we're going to. So tonight I've chosen to import a sample health centers data set. A small data set, but I think it's a good example of data that might be added to this type of system. If I scroll to the left, I can see that there's health facility IDs and names and all types of attributes that are useful for keeping track of health centers. A couple key pieces of data that we'll want to pay attention to is the Shire code, because as we'll see shortly, we're going to place these health centers underneath Shire in the administrative hierarchy. There's also lat-long information in this spreadsheet, so we'll use this to create points, geographic points that can be mapped. And just to pick another custom attribute, we will create a custom attribute of health type. Or actually, let's do health facility ownership. We'll come back to that shortly. This is what our data looks like. It's in a spreadsheet format. We can also import shapefiles, but in this case, we're going to upload a spreadsheet. The first thing we need to do is create a Geo-Object type that defines what health centers should look like. So I'm going to do that in the Ministry of Health organization. You can see here that data is organized by organizations or teams of people. There's a group for Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Home Affairs, etc. So let's create a Geo-Object type in the Ministry of Health. Here I'm going to use this health center example as the code. The code is just the human readable ID. And I'm going to type a quick label in here. One note, the demo instance does not have an additional localization or language installed. GeoPrism Registry is fully configurable in terms of localization, so we could add one or more languages to the system, in which case we would see labels for all the languages that are installed in the system. In this case, we only have the default, which is English, so we're just going to go with that for simplicity's sake. All these settings are documented in our official documentation, so I'd encourage you to go there for more information, but I'm gonna go through this somewhat fast just to keep this video. So you'll notice that we're setting this as a point geometry type, because remember when we looked at our data before, it had lat-long columns. So we're going to use those lat-long columns to create point geometries. And again, the Geo-Object type defines how this data should look in the system. So we're saying there's going to be a type, or you could think about this as a layer in GIS terms, that's going to be called health center example. And it's going to be of point geometry type, and it's within the Ministry of Health. Click OK. And here we can see the Geo-Object type that we just created. I'm going to click Edit on that type real quick because I want to create a custom attribute. If you remember a minute ago, I pointed out the health facility ownership column. Just as an example, I'd like to create a custom attribute to represent that. So these Geo-Object types are fully configurable, including being able to create more attributes of different data types. In this case, I'm just going to keep this as a simple text column and call this health facility ownership. Oops. Actually, it's the label. This is a code. And I know codes can't have spaces, so I'm going to use underscore. I'm going to leave the description blank for now. Simple. Now if I scroll down, I can see in the list of attributes that there's our new attribute, new custom attribute. I'm going to click submit. Now we have our Geo-Object type created, but we need to add it to a hierarchy. And rather than adding it to an existing hierarchy, I'd like to create a new. So zooming down to the Ministry of Health organization hierarchies, we're going to create a brand new hierarchy. Here we're going to call this Health Center Hierarchy Example. And we're going to leave the metadata empty for now, just to make this as brief as possible. You can see there's a variety of metadata fields here that are incredibly useful and important to fill out for real production data. But for right now, I'm just going to create this initial hierarchy. Again, the code is just the human readable ID for this hierarchy, and the label is what you would actually see in the app. Click OK. And here you can see our brand new hierarchy. There's nothing in it yet. So you see this drag and droppable box to add GeoObject types to this new hierarchy. So let's do that. Now, there's a couple ways to define hierarchies. If this were something that if this were a hierarchy where the health centers were going to be at the top of the hierarchy, I would want to take our health center example GeoObject type that we created before and drag and drop it into the hierarchy as the root or the top. But that's not quite what we want to do for this example. So I'm going to remove this from the hierarchy. And instead, I'm going to drag the Shire GeoObject type from the Ministry of Home Affairs into the hierarchy as the root. So why did I do this? I want to inherit hierarchy data, hierarchy and GeoObject type and GeoObject instance data from the Ministry of Home Affairs hierarchy. This is incredibly useful because I don't want to have to maintain that same data that the Ministry of Home Affairs already contains. Rather, I want to inherit as much of that hierarchy from them as I can and just add data that's unique to my operations. In this case, it's health centers. So here I added Shire as the top of the hierarchy. But if I click on this little information cog, I can see that there are hierarchies that are related to this GeoObject type. Here at the top, we can see our administrative structure hierarchy. So I'm going to click on that, and it shows me how this GeoObject type, again, Shire, fits into the administrative structure hierarchy. It's the second from the bottom hierarchy. And that's great because I know, looking in my data in that spreadsheet that we looked at before, that there's a column for Shire IDs we're going to use to map into this hierarchy. That's going to be in a later video, so follow along on our YouTube channel. If I click on that cogwheel again, I can choose to inherit from this hierarchy. So I'm going to click inherit, and what happened, the display changed so that we can see Shire is at the bottom of this inherited piece of hierarchy. Everything you're looking at right now, from the 4 GeoObject types to the relationships between them, are all inherited from the administrative structure hierarchy. So something we didn't talk about is the relationship type. In a hierarchy, there's a relationship. There's a generally a linear relationship in a hierarchy. So in this example, you can see Shire is within county, is within province. Hierarchies can be more complex than this, but for this example, it's pretty linear. Now, this is Shire, but we're going to create health centers. So we need to add our health center GeoObject type to this hierarchy. So going back to the GeoObject types section, let's drag this over to our new hierarchy. And I'm going to add it as a child. You'll notice I can add it as a child of county as well, which would make it a sibling of Shire, but we don't want to do that. We want this to be a child of Shire. Okay, so now when we look at our hierarchy, you can see there's the health center example, Geo-Object Type, which we created. And that's going to be linked to Shire as a within relationship. So health centers are going to be within Shire. And that's about it. Our next video is going to be how to import data into this hierarchy. So please check that video out. I'll link it in the description of this.